It's not working. I think that's free. You have to talk loud, I think.
You're on club helmet?
I have it on.
What's it now?
Oh, testing now. Okay,
We think it was interference.
it was interference. Okay, all right. Well, we'll try again. Are you okay, Greg?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So the meeting tonight, we have three different speakers. Our first speaker is Cindy McClymonds, and she is a professional guardian. She has her own business named At Your Service Professional Guardian. She has other people that work for her as well. She's also the president of Mid-Florida Guardianship Association. She's been doing this for 13 years, and she's here tonight to share some experiences and stories with some of the clients she's had, and to briefly also explain some of the services that they provide. Please welcome Cindy.
Yeah. So my name is Cindy McClymonds. I'm a nurse. I'm a professional guardian. I have my own business.
I'm sorry, can you speak a little louder or get closer? Yeah, closer.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Okay.
Better.
But I just want to talk to you a little bit tonight about the importance of having a plan for when you pass, what's going to happen to your child. Don't wait to make the plan. We all think, oh yeah, I need to do this, I need to do this, and then don't get around to it. And if you make the plan, then you don't have anything to worry about. And there's not a mess left. Because I've been where there's not been a plan, and believe me, it's a mess. There's nobody that knows exactly what's supposed to happen, and you're not sure if the people around are gonna be the ones that end up being the guardian for your child. And you don't want that. You wanna be able to pick who it's gonna be. And you wanna make that transition for your child as easy as it can be, because it's gonna be hard. And so make sure that you have the paperwork in place to make sure that the person that you want to be your surrogate is there. And that they can pick up right where you left off, and things can go as smooth as they can for your loved one. And when you name someone that's going to be your surrogate, make sure that you name more than one person, and pick somebody younger than you, because it isn't going to do any good to name 3 people if they're the same age as you, because they're going to be in the same boat as you are. So, and if it's family, great. They'll already know a lot of things. If it's not family and it's a friend, make sure they understand what they're really getting into, because guardianship is not easy. And there's a lot to it, and most people have no idea with the reports and things like that have to be done. So make sure they understand what the whole job is. Make sure that you have, whatever, if you're leaving money to your child or whatever, make sure that it's in a trust that isn't gonna screw up their Medicaid, because that's easy to do. And you wanna make sure that that does not happen. The trustee for the trust can be a lawyer, or it can be the surrogate. But if it's the lawyer, it's probably gonna cost a little more on an annual basis, but there's oversight to what the surrogate's doing. But if you don't have the lawyer do it, the surrogate can do it. And make sure that there's language in the trust, that the trustee can be changed if needed. Because there have been times that, like right now, I have a trust in Ohio, and I need money to hire a lawyer to get my ward approved for APD because it's been a horrific fight. And they don't want to spend the money there, and it's totally up to their discretion. So that's very sad. So just try to prepare for that in advance. And if you have have the lawyer that you're going to use, someone who's very knowledgeable about guardianship, because it sounds like guardianship is easy, but again, there's a lot of nuances legally. So if you, you know, you wouldn't go to a podiatrist for a heart problem. So not all lawyers practice law the same. Frequently we see caregivers pass before the loved one. And a lot of it is due to the amount of stress it is to be a caregiver. I'm sure you are all well aware of that stress. And just make sure that you have your documents in order so that everything will go smooth. Next thing I want to talk to you about is a really difficult thing for most caregivers. And that's about placing your loved one, your child, in a facility before you pass. It's a very difficult thing to do because we all feel like that's, a lot of people feel like that's, you know, got a stigma to it. Oh, I put my child in a facility, but it isn't a bad thing. Because if you think about it, if you die and they're not in a facility, think of the stress that child is put under. You know, their entire world is wiped out. And a lot of the kids that you all have difficulty dealing with change. So when you think about putting them in a facility, this way you get to pick the place. Nobody else picks the place. You get to pick the place that they're going to be at. You get to look at all the different places, and you're not at the mercy of what's available at the time, because you've got time right now. You can be on a wait list for the place that you think is the best place for your child. And that's ultimately what you want. And then you'll also be there to help them adjust. You know, you can help them to understand a new way of doing things. And they're going to get to meet more people and learn to depend on other people besides just you. And a lot of times when kids go to a facility, they really blossom because they're doing more for themselves. They're learning more about how to function. And it's good because you'll be there to give them support through this change. And not everything's going to change at the same time. They'll form relationships with staff and with other residents, so they have a support system when you pass, and they don't feel alone. Also, you want to make sure that your surrogate gets a chance to know your child, you know, before you pass. And you get to see how they interact if it's someone you don't know. And that's important because, you know, what if they just don't get along and you don't like the way things go? But try to keep an open mind because everybody does things a little differently. And at least if they're already in the facility, everything isn't changing all at once. They will, of course, have a big hole where you were, but they have people to help them that they already know they can depend on and count on. And that's really, really important. I have a mother and a daughter that I'm POA for right now, and the mother just will not put her will not move them to a facility. She's older, they could go to an assisted living. They already live in a 55 and older community. And she could be doing so many things and making so many friends, but now her world is her mom. And when her mom goes, she's gonna be devastated. And then she'll have everything new, everything. Because she can't live on her own. They don't just lose you, they lose their home. Because most of these kids can't live on their own. But if they're already someplace that is home and you treat it like their apartment, then they can function better. And it works easier for them. And that's what we all want, is for it to be the easiest for them. And you can also, it isn't terrible to enjoy your retirement a little bit. If you know there's someplace safe, you can, do some things and enjoy your retirement. Because it's a lot of work to take care of these kids. They need to do things. They not just sit in a house, not just sit in a room. And usually in a facility that is focused towards kids like this, adults like this, they have activities that are appropriate for them. It's not always just bingo. And they get to do things. They get to go on outings with people their own age and do things. And since you are all here in this group, I assume that you probably do things together here and there. And if you can get them approved for APD, do it. Start the fight as soon as you can, because it takes a lot. And you are far more knowledgeable about your child and their past than anybody else is going to be. And hopefully that will be able to be helpful, because I have a kid right now that I have been fighting to get on APD. He's been in the Northeast Florida Hospital for 5 years because there is nowhere that's appropriate for him but an APD home. I've written letters to governors, to senators. I have applied 3 times. His mother applied right before she died, but she didn't know what, she didn't have any help to apply. She just filled out the application. So of course it got kicked back. But, it's important because that helps them to have more services for them to use, to support them, more supportive service. And they need those things. And without it, the cost is a lot. And a lot of things aren't paid for by insurance, as you all well know. Medical things, but not all the things they need. And APD can provide a lot of those things, but you have to get them on APD, which can be a real challenge. Debbie and I were talking before the meeting started, and I'm going to get with her and see if she can help me to get this done, because I've tried and tried, and I don't want to. I have new findings now, and I have to be careful and not use those before I'm sure that I have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted and everything that I can. Yes?
What's APD?
Agency for Persons with Disability. It's a group that is nationwide, but each state administers it. And it is hard in Florida. I don't know how it is in other states because I've never done this in other states, but it is hard in Florida. I sent 168 pages of documentation and correlated what their administrative orders are for admission to where it said that in the school records and doctor records, and they told me there was no evidence. So it takes a lot to get that done. And if you guys have someone here that can help, by all means, take advantage of that. And I have, another family that, the mother got dementia. And she had a 43-year-old son who is very low functioning. And there was a 1.5-year court battle over who was gonna be in charge of him. A 1.5 years. And attorney fees were astronomical. Finally, we got him to a place, and he was APD approved. And we finally got him into a place, but it wasn't the best place for him. Because I had to move him, because he kept losing weight and losing weight and losing weight and losing weight. And I got him to a new place. Oddly enough, he started to gain weight. They just weren't making sure that, you know, he functions at about a 2-year-old level. And they thought that he'd be able to feed himself just fine, because all his food was off his plate by the end of the meal. Well, yeah, because it was all on the floor all around him. But these are the kind of things that you can check out and make sure that your child doesn't end up in that situation. So I would urge you to make sure that you have paperwork in order. Meet with the people that you're going to ask to take care of your child. And make sure that they understand what you want for them. You know, what are their pre-need plans? Do they have pre-need plans? What do you want for that? Because if you don't make those decisions and let people know, somebody else will. And it may not be what you think you would want for your child. So it's important to think about all those kind of things in advance, well in advance. So that your surrogate's gonna have time to get to know them and will know what's normal for them, what's abnormal for them. Well, he doesn't usually fly off the handle like this. So maybe something else is bothering him. But if it's a stranger that's appointed by the court, they won't know that. They'll just know what they see now. So it's really important to get that paperwork in place. And I feel that you are doing them a better service to get them in a good facility now, before you pass. So that you can be the mom and the dad. You can go visit, you can go do fun things. You don't have to do the drudgery things. You don't have to be the bad guy. So I would encourage you all to do that. My company with guardianship, there are usually a lot of reports that have to be filed annually with the court. And as a family guardian, depending on what kind of guardianship you have. And when people come to the guardianship, our guardianship group offers a family guardianship class. And when people come, they're like, oh my, I've been a guardian for him for 2 years already, and I had no idea I needed to do all these reports. We have another lady who, an attorney just called us and said, hey, could you help her do these reports? Because the police just showed up with a summons to show up to court because she'd never done any of the reports in 3 years. So we help people do the reports. We can do reports for people. We can make it so that, you know, set it up so that every month you just send us all the stuff that we need and we'll keep it and get the reports ready for you to file at the appropriate time. So we do a lot of things like that. Also, if you need help figuring something out, there are lots of rules about it. You can always call. Please call during business hours. But we be more than glad to give you some advice or help you do what you need to do. Yes,
Where are you based?
I'm in Umatilla.
And how many people are in your firm?
I have my husband, my daughter, another girl's just like my daughter. So the 4 of us,
And how many clients do you? take care of?
18. Not all of mine are disabled adults. A lot of them are older seniors, like that have dementia. And I have had several kids that were on the spectrum, but most of our clientele are, have dementia and are elderly. But, you know, like I said, I get moms and kids, and we just deal with what we need to deal with. I feel like if somebody's brought to me, there's probably a reason. So we try to help where we can help. Anybody else have any other questions?
Is your role to help people file the guardianship and get all that started, or is it you take guardianship for people who have nobody else that can?
I
help
do
them?
guardianship for people who don't have anybody else. You need an attorney to file guardianship paperwork. And like I said, I really urge you to get an attorney who is very familiar with guardianship. So your letters say what you need them to say.
Do attorneys contact you, or is there guardianship.com or? Okay.
Attorneys contact me. I've had doctor's offices contact me. I've had nursing homes contact me. And I've had families contact me because there's lists of guardians. And I've been called from the list before. But mostly it's word of mouth, and I work with different attorneys.
We have a department of guardianship and advocacy here in Florida.
Called the Office of Professional and Public Guardianship. And they have a list of guardians.
What do you see as an average time from the time you apply to the time you're accepted? Here in,
For what? For guardianship?
the
APD? And you need to ask this lady that, because she's going to be far more knowledgeable about that than I am. Most of the time, the kids that I get are already on APD.
Do you need me to try? Well, I have a couple of partners, Kevin over here, Kevin Jenkins, and
take it there.
is this working? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Deb, is it working? Yeah. I'm pretty loud. And Debbie Jenkins, who couldn't be here tonight. We have a group called Fins. I have brought cards, but we have a couple missions. One is to advocate for the IDD population by contacting legislators. But a big part of our role is helping people get onto APD. A lot of people come with denials, should I go to a hearing, all that. And what we've learned as many tricks as we can by working with so many parents and our own experience. I was rejected for my son, the application that I passed in for my son was rejected 3 times before he got on APD. And then, there was a wait time, but we learned a few things that from my partner's experience, Debbie Jenkins and Kevin, and we moved it ahead. So now Brian is getting services. He got them at the very end of December, early January. So if you want my card, please come. I'll probably set them over on that table. And there's an email address and there is a website. Our webmaster Greg Dooley is here. It is phenomenal if you went on that, if you go on our website. A lot of the things that we do are all on the website. And then we hold workshops twice a month up at the Sumter Annex where the sheriff's office is and all on Morse and 466 on the second Friday of the month. Okay, but you'll see that all on the website if you take the time.
And Debbie, when you applied for the kind, your son, you applied and then finally got accepted, how many years did that take?
We sat on it for about 1.5 years and I finally got an application to get him on the wait list, now called pre-enrollment. What happened is I met Debbie Jenkins and she leaves, nothing on the table. She had me write a letter about what we're finding is in his skills, what kind of health issues we are facing, make sure I could prove our age. because that puts you in a priority category, all of that. And then within about 3 to 4 weeks, I got a call when I sent that letter in, they turned everything around. And we started the process to get him on Medicaid and get him to iBudget waiver services for APD.
And was that for community services or for, the residential?
This was just to get him on services.
To get on through.
Yes. Okay.
For, what that is, what that is exactly. So what that is, it's going to teach while doing, they decide what you want to use.
Yeah, but hold the mic closer to your mouth.
Closer to your mouth. Put it up closer to your mouth.
It's closer to like maybe by the month or maybe longer.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Cindy? Thank you so much, Cindy. We really appreciate it. She's putting some cards on the table, and if you have any other questions for her or want to grab one of her cards at the end, please do. Just to follow up on a couple things that she said. Number one is Florida is a state that is 49th in the nation for funding for persons with disabilities. 49. I just verified that last week. As far as APD and how long that takes, I just spoke to a mother last week. Her son has been on the waiting list for 10 years here in the villages. Okay. The mother is in her 70s.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that at the family cafe I went to last month, I was in line to speak to someone from APD, and 2 ladies in line in front of me, their children have been on the wait list, and their adults have been on the wait list for 15 years. So to reiterate what Cindy spoke about, you need to apply for APD if you haven't.
May I ask?
Yeah, come up here to me. Debbie was very good at what she did, and she had the help of Debbie Jenkins to make a case, and they took it as a crisis situation. Not all of them are like that. And Debbie will tell you what's happening here recently. Things are changing.
I'll come.
Yeah, in case you need to have some. What I want, a lot of you, I know there are people here who say, I've been on the list for 4 years and 5 years, and I'm getting nowhere. What I want to tell you is if I hadn't worked to get Brian on that list, what would have happened is when I sent in that letter, and in my mind, it wasn't even a crisis. We had been through a crisis 6 months before with my husband's health. And there was no way I could put any energy to getting Brian the services at that time. By having him on the list, when that moment came, it moved much more quickly. And I will also say that sometimes your crisis, it doesn't have to be you've lost a spouse or they're going into a memory unit and you're visiting every day and trying to care for a child with disability. The crisis is sort of an accumulation of things that are going on in your life along with the level of your child. The other thing I want to say is if you have applied for APD and you're not hearing anything, well, I can point to 5 people right in here who are waiting a year, to 18 months just to get a letter back. What I want, and some of them are going back and nagging. But what I want to tell you is you just keep working on it. And the other thing is come to our workshop. We have some names where we will tell you, contact this person in the central office and they will see about that moving a little faster. We've found what is working and what isn't. And it's not perfect. We don't get everybody there, but we've learned to move a lot of people. Anything to add, my friend?
Yes, I was gonna add a couple of things. As way I was gonna explain, please be on the phone and tell them that I am at a emergency crisis. That's what you use, and put that in your letter, and please make a picture of what they do every day.
Yes.
So he's saying, paint a picture of what happens every day. When you write a story or write a letter and explain your situation, don't explain your best day, explain your worst day. And Debbie is excellent at doing this and working with the parents to make progress on these. She is very determined and persistent, her and Debbie, the team Debbie. Okay. So thank you for addressing APD. We were going to talk about that as well. So she really hit on it, and she's bringing it from a reality standpoint. You know, she's working with these individuals and these parents. So anyway, thank you again for sharing your stories and your experience. By the way, I didn't introduce myself in the beginning. I am Kristy Sullivan, for those of you that don't know me, and I think most of you do. But I am the president of My Special Place, as you know. And as she was speaking about APD and guardianship and all that, I am the guardian of my sister. And I went through that process in Illinois and in Florida. And I did have to go through that 8-hour class. And yes, it is surprising some of the things you have to do. But anyway, I have a sister, as many of you know, she's 67 years old. I've cared for her full time, my husband and I, for 17 years. Prior to that, I cared for her on the weekends when I was still working. And I've been involved in her care since I've been 10 years. And so anyway, Karen used to live in a group home for 25 years until she had some serious health conditions. And I got involved as her medical advocate. And at that time, we took her out of the group home. We brought her into our home to help her recover and recuperate and get her the necessary medical need that she had. And here we are 17 years later. But we are, my husband's 70 years old. I'm almost 70 next year. And he wants to travel the world. And that's kind of challenging to get caregivers. And although we've worked down once or twice a year in the last couple of years that we get to, we have a plan, and we want that plan to happen in the near future. So anyway, next then I am anxious to share with you details of what My Special Place is doing. And by the way, I forgot to mention one other thing. Barbara Brown, whom many of you know in our community, she has 2 brothers that she cares for. She is the one that referred us to Missy, who works for Cindy. And she has recently hired Missy because of challenges that she's had with the paperwork and the accounting that's required for guardianship for her brothers. And unfortunately, she had an attorney handling it, and she needed to seek this kind of help that they're providing. And one of the first things she said to Barbara was, you know, the problem is a lot of families, the biggest mistake they make is waiting and not making plans for a transition before they leave. And it was just kind of a wake-up call. And when she mentioned that to me, I said, I think our group needs to hear that. And I appreciate her sharing that, but life can change in a moment, as we all know. And I often talk about individuals in our community that are in their late 80s, 90s. As you all know, we lost Coach Joe last month. He was 90 years old. They still are caring for their son, Tommy. And we need to have an option here for them in the villages, you know, if that's what they're considering. And I think you've also heard John Langan speak many times about saying, you know, if you have plans for your sibling to take care of that, if their sibling, you know, your child, see how that's going to go after you're gone. You can't ensure that that's going to happen. And although, you know, I had made that commitment for my family, you know, it's a hard commitment. It's a big sacrifice that we've made for 17 years. And not everybody's going to do that, and they don't realize what's involved either. I've been involved with my sister, like I said, since, you know, she was young. And so I knew what I was getting into, but not everyone does. So anyway, okay, so we're going to go ahead and proceed from there. I'm not going to give you the full presentation that we did originally. I gave you a lot of history of what this board has done in the past, when the board was formed. what we've done as a board. I'm not going over that tonight because I know a lot of you have already been to that meeting, as well as we've got that on the events website in case any of you missed it. I'll touch on just a couple points, but a lot of what we're presenting tonight is all new information that we're looking forward to sharing. Another technical difficulty. So, why isn't it showing up here, guys? It's showing on the. We really had this all working for everybody, except the PowerPoint over there, or the Zoom over there, but,
Can I sit here and click?
yeah, it's not on the projection. It's on the computer, but it's not on the projection. Okay, just a moment. I'm so sorry.
Just get it going, slideshow.
This slideshow was over here. It was working, but it's just not projecting. Yeah. Okay, so I do want to introduce our board. We have 10 members on our board at this time, and I'll introduce them. We have several here tonight. Debbie Beaucaire, if you wouldn't mind. She's the vice president, and she's my right hand. And I depend on her a lot. She's a tremendous help. We wouldn't be where we are today without. And we are needing a secretary. I've been filling the role for president and secretary for a while. And we are in need of a reporting secretary, and we are looking for one. So if anybody would be interested in doing that and has the skills to do that, we would much appreciate it. Melissa Baker is here. Melissa's normally up north at this time, and she's in town right now. She's currently our treasurer, but just kind of temporarily. We really need someone in the villages full time that's a treasurer. Right now, it's not an issue because right now our board doesn't have any money. So, okay, but we do have intention. So hopefully soon. No, we are in the process of filing a 501c3 to become a nonprofit status. And that will give us the opportunity to take donations. And once we start getting money, then it's going to be important for our treasurer to be here. So anyway, Melissa is still working full-time, by the way. She's a real estate investor. And our board members are Cindy Atkinson. She's not here this evening. She's up north. Amy Searley. Stand up, Amy. Amy's here tonight. We'll talk more about her later because she's going to speak at the end. Sharon Gipple's here. She's AJ's mom. And Mike Claus is up north. Pat LaChance is here. Pat. And John Macyars is here.
Good evening.
And as many of you know, but some of you may not know, John was the original, he was the last president of My Special Place. It was founded in 2018. I think, as you know, most of you, that they did go dormant the last couple of years, and we've just reactivated it, restarted it. He's agreed to continue with us to be the historian and help us through, challenges that they've had, and also bring forward, a lot of information that he can assist us with. And then Tammy Piper. Tammy greeted many of you at the door. So, our mission, yes? Oh, I'm so sorry. Great. Thank you so much to Greg Dooley. He is such an awesome guy. He has done so much for us, and he does so much for events. Like we said earlier, if you have not checked out the events website, you need to. I'm telling you, it's the best designed website. It's so much better than APD, the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. Greg has helped with our survey, our online electronic survey. He designed that. He helped with our last Zoom. He's helping tonight. He helps us in numerous ways, and he gives a lot of input and perspective as well, especially from his position. So anyway, as far as our mission, I just want to review that real quick. We aim to enlist a service provider with experience in delivering residential housing and services for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And the goal is to develop and to establish housing opportunities in the villages area that empower adults with IDD to live safe, fulfilling, and enjoyable lives. And our focus is in providing high-quality residences that align with the lifestyle we have in the villages. And additionally, we seek to create opportunities for social engagement, recreation, employment, and helping individuals reach their full God-given potential. So at the previous meetings, like I said, we gave a lot of general information. We weren't specific on what we are looking at. And there were reasons for that. And the reasons for that is we wanted to wait until we got confirmation and support from the villages that they were in favor of the buildings that we are specifically looking at. We didn't want to take that risk of them hearing about that secondhand until they gave us that approval. And we did not directly speak to them at that time. We have a realtor that we've been working with. She has been the liaison between us and the village's director of commercial real estate. And he's the one that communicated that to us. The other reason is because the buildings that we're looking at are currently for lease or for sale. The concern is someone else could come in and buy or lease those before we get the opportunity. So there was a concern of us specifically telling you that. And then if by chance another buyer comes in and buys those, then we're right back to square one. And we didn't want to disappoint our community once again. So that's why we were apprehensive. But we're far enough along right now that we're more confident at talking to you about it. However, I will say, what we're presenting here tonight, there is no guarantee. We want to tell you we're very optimistic and we're very excited, but there's no guarantee, okay? Just keep that in mind. As I said, we are working hard every day on this project. And I will tell you that as a board, we are meeting every week, at least 2 hours a week on those board meetings. But in addition to that, we have numerous conference calls and other activity going on. That's kind of unheard of for a volunteer board to meet weekly. I spoke to some parent tonight that I had called and reached out to her because she had indicated on the survey that she has some skills that might be able to help us. As soon as I told her how often we meet, she said, "Oh, well, I'm sorry that's not going to work out. I work full time." And I explained too, it's not common for a board to, meet weekly like this. The reason why we are is because we are so determined to move this as quickly as we can because we don't want to lose these buildings. And the other reason is because we're anxious for this to happen. And, this board will not always meet that frequently, but there's a lot of things going on right now, information, decision-making, and such. So what I would like to do is talk about the buildings that we're looking at. And they are located at 1475 El Camino Real, and that is directly across from the hospitals. These buildings are the two that we're looking at right here, 1 and 2. They are on waterfront in the back of them, and the hospitals are over here across the street. And these were previously occupied by Freedom Point. And during COVID, they transferred the individuals, the residents that were in the 2 buildings, over to the new building at Freedom Point, the larger building. Their intention was to remodel both buildings and move individuals back and residents back. But somehow along the way, they decided to abandon that objective, and those buildings have been sitting empty for over 2 years. One building was used as an assisted living. It's a 2-story that I'll talk about. The other building was used for memory care. Here's another photo that shows this building 1, and here's the healthcare center that's in the same parking lot that is still owned by Freedom Point. It's a rehab facility. And then here's building 2, but you can see this big waterfront that's behind there. It's a beautiful spot. Obviously, this is in the villages, which is what we wanted. These buildings are ideal for our needs because they were previously used for residents in an assisted living and memory care. So this is a picture of the front of the building. This one, we call building 1, is a 2-story building. And these are a couple pictures. I'm going to show you more of the inside. So this building, we're going to call, or label it as a supported living facility. And that's the 2-story. And we see that operating similar to an independent living facility, and I'll talk more about what kind of services they would provide. It's over 27,000 square foot. It has 31 units. 9 of those units have what we call a semi-kitchen efficiency. It has a refrigerator and a microwave and a sink. So it's not a full kitchen. All of the units in this building have private bathrooms. And also they have a community living area and dining room areas. There's a couple other auxiliary rooms that we're thinking we could use for activities as well. And then I'm going to show you some pictures. Now, these are great pictures. At the time I took these, I did not know I was going to be using them in a presentation, so excuse the photography skills here. But this is the entry of the 2-story. This is just the living room area as you walk in the front door. This is a bedroom, which isn't a great picture, but it's a good size bedroom. And of course, with the building empty, you can't really tell too much. This is an efficiency that I was talking about, the smaller refrigerator, sink, and then there's a microwave on the left side. This is on the second floor. It's got another open living area that overlooks the downstairs. And then this is an enclosed lanai, you would say, on the second floor. And as you can see, it overlooks the water out back, and it's got this huge, beautiful oak tree in the back. It's a beautiful setting. It really is. This is the dining room area on the main level. And by the way, I want to tell you that it's a dated building. This building, the interior is dated. And we do know it will require renovations. We were originally told by the owner that the renovations would cost about $1 million. Well, one of our board members was a property manager, and she said, I don't see $1 million improvements in this building. So we sought out a contractor that came in and gave us a more detailed estimate. Guess what? She was right. It was less than $650,000, which is great. So this is an example of one of the bathrooms. Most of the bathrooms have been remodeled in this building. They had started those. However, there's about 6 of them that still need remodeling. They're fiberglass units. And this is what they look like after they've renovated them. Now, this particular one, I will say, some people might point out that this little step up is not ADA compliant. That is something that's going to be fixed. Many of the showers do have it where it's more flat, but some of them have this little bump up, and that needs to be resolved. So there's a laundry room. There's a laundry room on both floors. This building has a huge elevator as well. Okay, so that was building number 1. Building number 2 is just across the parking lot. They're in the same parking lot. Same address. This one's 10,400 square feet. It has 13 units, and it has private bathrooms. However, there's 6 units that share a shower. And the shower is very nice, though. The way they did it is awesome. It's like its own room. And it's all ADA compliant, and you'll see a picture of that. And it has community living room and dining rooms. This particular building had been totally renovated before Freedom Point decided they weren't going to maintain it. And it's brand new, ready to move in, and nobody's even used it. So this is an example of the living room area. And the pictures don't do it justice. It really is a beautiful, serene setting that they've done, and they've done a really nice job on the renovations. This is still in the living room. This is one of just the private bathrooms. And then this is the shower that's shared, but what you can't see is it's probably 10 foot deep to walk into the room where the shower is. So it's very convenient for wheelchairs and such. It'll be very nice. This is the commercial kitchen area that was all redone. The only thing this particular building needs of course, besides furniture in the main areas, but it does need commercial equipment. And this is the dining room area. So that gives you a little visual of what we're looking at. I'm sorry I didn't have a bedroom for the newer building, but I will tell you that there are varying sizes of rooms in that one-story building. They're all very generously sized. There are some that could be a double room if needed, but we're not recommending that. We're recommending private rooms, but if somebody, you know, later on when we choose a service provider and they apply to live there, if they want to offer, you know, double rooms, that's a possibility. We do have a family that has the two brothers, and I will say that in those units that have the efficiency, they actually have a private bedroom, and then they also have a living room area, and plus their private bathroom, as I said. So they're bigger units, you know, there would be different costs related to the different sized units. Of course, the bigger ones would be a little more costly, but that all has to be determined later down the line. As I said, we're labeling the one story as an assisted living facility. And so what we see is on the two story, it being more of an independent type living, it would be for the higher functioning individuals. You know, those individuals that don't need 24/7 care there to provide them whatever their needs are. However, the way we look at that building operating is it would have 24/7 staff there during the night. Sometimes these facilities may operate where they only have staff 12 hours, and then at night they're not staffed. We prefer that it be 24/7 and have someone during the night. For the supported living, what we see is that individuals, let's say the individuals are on APD, they get so many service hours, and that can be for a supported living coach, or it can be for a waiver coordinator or companion. The waiver coordinator actually helps coordinate their services, okay? So these coaches, and actually John and Doreen Maciars, their daughter lived in Orlando for over 20 years. And there, she lived in, it was a duplex, right, John, or a condo? And she lived down there for over 20 years. And she got the services from a supported living coach that would come in so many hours a week and help her with her finances, her grocery shopping, ensure that she was taking care of her apartment and keeping it in orderly and clean, you know, helping her do, you know, pharmacy runs or medical appointments, assisting with those. Often a coach will also help with if they have medication, you know, helping distribute and plan for their medications. And also, you know, coordinating their social security benefits, or if they got food stamps or some other benefits and Medicaid services, they would also coordinate those. Now, if an individual does not have APD services, hopefully y'all have SSI and SSDI. But I will tell you from the surveys that we received, we even found that some of you are not receiving SSI or SSDI for your child. That should be number one, unless you've chosen not to accept it. But that will be another source of income for individuals to pay for, you know, housing and care. The other option is private pay. If you don't have APD services, we are going to be able to accept private pay. Now, I know the biggest question many of you have is how much is this going to cost? And I wish we had the opportunity to share that tonight. I will tell you that we are working with two service providers. And we've talked about this before. The two service providers have over 60 years experience. They're very experienced in providing residential housing. They're very experienced in doing day programs and job placement and job coach. So we're in the process of vetting and evaluating them and waiting for proposals. We did get a preliminary information yesterday, but let me just say that it's not enough information to share yet. We are going to be meeting with the service provider next Friday, and we hope to get more details and ask more questions, so we can better understand. And we're anxious to share that with you. I know that's really important to everybody. It's just too vague right now to explain. And the other issue is the service providers are evaluating whether or not to lease or buy. That makes a big difference. I will tell you that the price tag on these buildings is, and I'm sure somebody could find it if they wanted to on the internet, it's $6.5 million. Is that the price that will be paid? We don't know. But the buildings have been sitting empty for 2 years. One reason they've been sitting empty too is because there's only a limited number of uses that those buildings can be used for. They're not allowing them to compete with Freedom Point and what they offer. And there's a lot of restrictions that the villages has placed on how those buildings can be used. I will explain that. So, we are moving along every day. We are making progress, as I said. We are anxious to get further information, like I said, from the service providers. As we told you at the last meeting, we've evaluated their facilities, we've evaluated their services, but we're waiting for the proposals and more information to see how this all can work. As we've said before, though, of course, the benefits I think you all understand are that the benefits of living in such a facility are that our kids, we say our kids, our adult children, would have ability to have access to their peers every day. As I said last meeting, I see these environments being full of energy, full of activity, similar to what you see when you go to Special Friends Bowling on Saturday. The camaraderie, the fun that they have, the interaction and engagement that they have with each other. That's what I see in these facilities. They're going to have support and reinforcement from caregiving within their own community. Some of them are higher functioning enough to kind of help each other out as well. And, they can find meaningful work in the villages. Many of ours have jobs already, but being located where this building is, they can possibly work at the hospital. Look at how many jobs there are over there. Look at how much retail we have over in Spanish Springs that they would have the access to. Of course, these facilities would have transportation, and that transportation would be included in the care services, or you choose which services you need for your individual. But look at how close it would be to the squares. It's an ideal location. I'm kind of jumping a little bit, but I will tell you this. Yesterday, I actually got to speak to a vice president from community relations from the village. It was a casual visit. It was our first opportunity to face-to-face talk to an executive and say, this is what we're doing. This is what we're looking at. Is there any way you can help us? And our challenges that I explained to him were, we've got some licensing challenges and challenges of how these models can work. As we've talked about at our last meeting, we would like to have a day program in that 2-story building. That might not be possible. It's because of licensing restrictions, both from ACA, which is the Agency for Healthcare Administration, who licenses buildings for assisted living. And then there's also the Agency of Persons with Disabilities that does licensing of group homes. We're not talking about group homes here, and I will tell you, the reason why we're not talking about group homes is that wouldn't be feasible probably in the villages. What APD is mainly pushing in group homes is that they be residential homes in residential communities with an average of 6, preferably 6 individuals. If you're wanting a private room for your child, we don't have 6-bedroom houses here in the villages, number one, and number two, we don't think the villages is going to likely want to have a lot of group homes spread out. The other thing is, we see a multi-unit facility having much more benefits, more people, economically more cost effective. We can put enough people in these buildings that would take, 7 to 8 group homes. Think about the cost of those 7 to 8 group homes with, staff in 7 to 8. Every group home has to have transportation. Every group home has to have, maintenance and upkeep and, it's a lot of expense, the insurance on every single building. When you look at a multi-building, it is more economical if you look at the utilities and all of that. So we also see the advantage of having more people in a building, just the camaraderie. When you have a group home, believe me, my sister lived in a group home that had 12 people, which was a large one considering, and it was more like an ICF, which is an intermediate care facility. But if you live in a small group home and there's 6 individuals and you've got conflicts between 2 individuals, how comfortable is that in their everyday living? They live in a small home. They're there in each other's face every day if they don't get along. In a building such as what we're talking about with 31 people in the building, they have room to spread out. They have room to associate with other people than just the 6 in their home. Those are advantages. And of course, as I said, access is more efficient. Of course, being in the villages, there's golf cart path right in front of that parking lot. And it's all golf cart accessible, which is ideal. Many of our individuals can drive golf carts, and they do. Of course, with families, the benefit is in close proximity. Of course, to have your daughter or your son here in the villages, especially for emergencies. And of course, just peace of mind for the relatives, knowing that they have a place close and that they've made a plan in transition for their care before they leave. For the community, of course, IDD residents can provide skills in the workforce, and in the lower skilled, jobs that people may not want to do. And it creates a market opportunity for the village's sales department, of course. Mike Koss, who has Cabato Tech website, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with that, he gets calls on a regular basis from people out of state who have discovered his website, called him and started asking him questions about what it would be like to move here to the villages, what opportunities they have for their son or daughter. And residential is right up there when they're asking what's available here. And then, of course, it's just a natural extension of what we're doing in our community. We provide independent care, assisted living, memory care, hospice for our seniors, but we don't provide this for our IDD community, and we need something here. So with that said, I will say that we have done surveys, as you all know, and many of you have participated. We've had 90 surveys to date. And thanks to Greg, he put it on the Offends website, and we've condensed that survey at this point to the most important pieces of information that we feel we need to collect at this time. We want to continue collecting surveys, and this is the reason why. We were kind of shocked when we got responses back on the immediate need of individuals who want to take advantage of these residential facilities. I will tell you that based on the responses we received, there are not enough to build, which was shocking to me. Because all I've heard for several years is, we don't have anything here in the villages. We don't have any special needs residential housing. And then when it came down to saying, and I've been preaching this to all these service providers we've been visiting and different community leaders and such, and saying, we need this. We're a community of 160,000 people. We do not have one residential housing option for our IDP community. When I tell people outside the villages that, even the CEO of ART just shocked that we don't have anything. And so it surprised us, but we do know why some of those responses were not unique. And some of them were 1 to 2 years. This is what we assume why we got that kind of response. Number one is we didn't tell you any specifics in the first place because we really couldn't, as I explained up front. Now that you can see, we've actually been working on these buildings since day one that we've had for a board. That's been in April. We've been focused on these buildings. We've evaluated other options along the way, believe me, we have. But these are the ones that we see ideal, that give us one of the priority importances is to be in the villages. And so at this time, we are still wanting to reach out to those in the community to say, are you interested and what is your interest? If you've already filled out a survey, we don't want you to fill out another one. We don't want you to duplicate it. However, if you said, oh, I'm thinking about this in 5 years down the road, and now you're saying, wow, this is available, and you're maybe kind of looking at a reality check and saying, I'm this age now, who knows what could happen in 5 years? And who knows if this is going to have availability in 5 years? If you have a change of heart or change of mind, you can let Tammy know. We have the original surveys here, the paper ones. Or if you completed an electronic one, you can let us know and we can make that change. But we're trying to get more credible and up-to-date information on what we think the potential need is. I will tell you, the other thing we think is, some people said 1 to 2 years because they don't think this is going to happen in 1 to 2 years. But I will tell you what we're focused on right now. These 2 buildings, if we get that service provider, and once we secure that and they determine a way to, the licensing and all of those requirements, or however it's going to be established, we're looking at months instead of years. We were looking at one time at land being donated. It was outside the villages. And I realized you could design something from scratch and try to get exactly what you want. Let me tell you, the cost of doing that would be a whole lot more than 6.5 million. And I'll also tell you that it would probably be a 5-year project from now. We wanted to find something that was available quickly in the near future and something that would not have to be built from scratch. And that is what we found in these buildings. We'll thank our, she stepped out, Melissa Baker, one of our board members, is the one that recommended those buildings to us. I will tell you that Kathleen, someone in our community also called just the other day and said, I want to tell you there's 2 buildings available over by the hospital. They used to be Freedom Point. And she said they would be perfect for what you need. And I said, yes, they would be. And that's exactly what we've been focused on. And so anyway, and I talked to another developer, someone referred me to somebody else recently that was building apartments up by Costco. And I was told that they're going to maybe dedicate a wing to special needs. Okay, I checked it out. I called, well, that was a discussion. But once the person that was talking to them said, the families really want a facility that's in the villages, golf cart accessible, recreation accessible, the amenities that we have here. He kind of decided not to pursue it, but this guy actually has an interest in special needs. He has a Biddy and Bo's coffee shop, if you're familiar with those. He has one of those in another state. He's building a car wash to actually hire IDD individuals to work there. So he has a heart, but he said, there's 2 buildings over by the hospital. I want to check out. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, those are the ones we've been focused on for 3 months. So it's just reaffirmation after reaffirmation. I will tell you that when I spoke to the vice president yesterday from community relations, when I told him about the buildings and showed him the pictures, he said, this is a great location. This is a great location. And I said, yes, that's why we don't want to lose it. We don't want to lose this opportunity. I didn't mention, and I will mention this, we are still working very hard to see if we can confirm that the residents living here can have villages ID cards issued. I did discuss that also with the vice president, although he has nothing to do with that. But we're working with the district government is who we were told to work with. However, it's a complicated process. Apparently, the developer is allotted so many villages ID cards to issue, and they have select assisted living facilities that get those. From what I understand, I think it's only 3, but I wasn't able to confirm that with them. So anyway, it's a determination of whether or not they're allotted, if they have any more allotted. Yes,
Its parents live in the villages. Did they not use, pass with with their family?
yeah. So there's a lot of considerations to it. Her question was, if the parents live in the villages, couldn't they get the pass to still utilize the amenities here? I will tell you that I finally got to the right person. I've been working on this for several weeks. And I finally got to a new customer service manager at the district, and she's the one that's now coordinating it. And so I do feel confident that she's actually working toward getting us the answers. But of course, I explained, number one, the people that used to live in Freedom Point had Villages ID card access. Number two is most of the residents that I assume are gonna live in these facilities already have non-resident Villages ID cards. It's not like we're going to be adding 44 new cards. It is a matter of how many of them have an existing one. However, I did learn that it's a different card. It's not a non-resident card. It's a renter's Villages ID card. So all I'm saying now is I'm in the right hands, I believe, of the person that can get us the correct answer. It may take some time, but we are definitely working toward that. That is something we definitely desire. And we know from the surveys, many of you have explained this is important to you because of all the activities we have available for our special needs. You know, we have 4 pages of activities for them. We want them to still be able to access Best Buddies, Fantastic Friends, Special Friends Bully, all the things we have here for them. We want that for them. So anyway, I wanted to say we still have, the factors that are impacting us this decision. And of course, we talked about the needs survey. We still want to get more surveys. We want to identify all the special needs families in the villages. I can't tell you how many times I talk to someone and they'll say, well, how many IDD do you have in the villages? I wish I could put my finger on that number. APD can't even give us the right number. I did report this at the last meeting. In our Tri-County area, Lake, Sumter, Marion, we have 2,400 individuals that are either on APD services or are on the wait list. Now, the biggest number is not in Sumter, believe it or not, and that's outside the villages. So we're just saying in this area, but we couldn't isolate it to the villages and get the right numbers. But as I told you last time, nationally, the statistics are 2.5% of individuals nationwide have an intellectual or developmental disability. If we just say conservatively, 1% of the villages, let's just say less than half of what nationwide they're saying, 1% of the villages would be 1,600 individuals. Do we have context for 1,600 individuals? No. I've gotten lists from a lot of the clubs and a lot of the groups. And John Langens is the biggest, but his includes a bunch of people outside of the villages as well. And we want to continue to identify those people that are in the villages. To get their input, to make sure they're aware of what we're doing and what we're offering, what our initiative is and what's hopefully coming. And as I said at the last meeting, this is not a one and done solution. This is just the first step into providing something. And Amy, who is going to talk next, Amy, and I'll introduce her in a minute. But she said, you build it and they will come. Well, guess what? We don't have to build it. But we think as soon as it's open, you guys are going to come because you're going to see how this is going to operate. And that 2-story building would be totally renovated and beautiful when we start out. We have high standards here in the villages. And we want to make sure that what we're choosing here is in line with our lifestyles that we currently have here. And so, as I said, we want your input. We want anybody that has those skills we're looking for. By the way, reporting secretary, somebody that's could be a treasurer that has accounting or CPA background. And we also are looking for someone who has legal services background or is a lawyer. I've actually reached out to the lawyer club here in the villages to see if anyone would volunteer. One of our board members saw an article in the paper about an individual that was featured, and she was a lawyer for special needs, and she fought for special needs rights. And we tried to get her. It hasn't quite worked out yet, but who knows, maybe in the future. She's got some medical issues that she's dealing with, and that's why she couldn't volunteer this time. But if you have any connections, we would sure like some referrals and some help in that regard. So anyway, at this time, I would like to introduce Amy Searley. Amy has been in the assisted living facility for many years. She participated in consulting, and also she actually worked in these buildings at one time that we're looking at. She worked for Brookdale Services. And she has assisted with 32 openings of assisted livings, many here in the villages. So she knows the industry very well. And she has her own business. She's a patient advocate, and she's got a lot of patients that she helps and with their needs. She also has a respite building that she takes people when she encounters them through all of her work, and she transitions them to her respite area. She's looking at turning that into an assisted living, but she does that to care for them until she can get them placed in an appropriate facility. And then she also has a caregiver service that she has staff for as well. And in addition to that, she also does marketing for doctors. Amy is 24/7 on the go. We are very privileged to have her on our board, to have her skills, to have her experience to contribute. And I'd like her to come up, and she's just going to share a little bit with you about this consideration.
Hello. You're still waiting? So my name is Amy. I'm a patient advocate. I've been a patient advocate, I think, since the womb. My first job, I was a teacher, and even as a high school teacher, I was an advocate. My classroom was the classroom kids came to that didn't have their lunch or didn't have friends to sit with at lunch. But my life took a turn. I'll just be kind of quick because you guys are all here for personal reasons, and what I do in my life is all based from personal experience. And my life changed from being a teacher and transitioned into healthcare in 2007 from a call from my mother. My brother called me and said, "Hey, Amy," because I can't move my pinky. I'm looking at it, trying to move it, but I can't move my pinky. And that was the very first day with Lou Gehrig's disease. And so I am not walking in your shoes, but I could probably fit into them. And you know, my heart has always gone out to these seniors, 90-year-old mother taking care of her husband and knowing every single night when she goes to bed, her last thoughts are, what's going to happen when something happens to me? You know, when you're a caregiver, those are probably the thoughts that go through your mind at least once a day. And so, in transparency, I like to be transparent. I do own a private care company. It's in memory of my brother. Some of you may have heard of it, my brother's keeper. But I'm really just an advocate. Our business lines, like there wasn't 5 years ago, I didn't say I was a private duty care company. That company started as a result of seeing such a lack of quality care in the caregiving business. So instead of complaining about it, my brother and I did something about it. And during COVID, instead of fighting with these care companies that I thought sent such poor care out to families, we decided we can't beat them, let's join them, a little bit expression is. And same thing with my respite facility. My respite facility is called the Lighthouse. And I've helped a lot of people that weren't fitting into the healthcare system. I'll tell you, the number one call I get at the Lighthouse is from the village's hospital, and the call goes like this. "Hey, Amy, we got another one. I already know what we're talking about. Do you know what I'm talking about? What are we talking about today? By the way, highly recommend. I've dealt with almost every guardian in Lake Sumter County. Phenomenal guardian. What's the call again, Cindy?
They have somebody that doesn't have capacity to say that they're where they can go and they need some people to take care of.
That's my second biggest call. The first one is this. Amy, we've got a patient in the hospital. Well, he's the caregiver of his wife. We had to bring her away too because we couldn't leave her home alone. 70% of the caregivers, this is a population of over 55. 70% of caregivers, they don't outlast the people they're taking care of. 70%. That's like, go this way. This motion, back up, you said. 70%, look at the room, that's like, now we're about 70%. Especially, you know, the older you get and the less you start taking care of yourself, you know, those numbers rise for you. So, part of the message that I wanted to send and the reason why I really decided to be on this board to help is because I'm in the field watching it happen. My experience with them was the exact same situation. Parents that did not outlive their son, and he was put in a situation. Fortunately, this young man is still with us and he's still doing great. But probably we would have had you and I, you know, advocacy, who knows where he will landed. So I'm here to open up a lot of the rules, and yes, it's senior living, but I know the needs in this community, and I just can't encourage them enough to start with some type of action. You know, caregivers get into what I call autopilot. That mindset of just getting up and getting through the day. And if you get through the day without cursing at anybody, it was a good day, right? It's funny because I remember this as a caregiver, and apparently I'm not wrong, because I get cursed out on the road all the time. And every time somebody passes me cursing, I'm like, oh, it's a caregiver. That day. I don't know that. But I encourage you, this is going to move quickly. And this is what's coming is not something, it's not a shopping thing that you're shopping for something that you want. This is a need-based planning experience that you need to get started. And I know firsthand, it's kind of hard to figure out where to start. As long as things are going okay, it's kind of no need to start. But I know, and you guys know it too, you're watching it happen in your neighborhood. Who's had a neighbor that's just, their life changed with one health event? Who's had it happen? Yes. Who's watched it with somebody you play golf with? The next day they're not at golf. And so you have an opportunity now, this housing that's coming to start to be a part of it, and you don't have to like jump on the board and be formal, you know, but be a part of it. But you have to start somewhere. And between myself, Cindy, you know, where to start, it starts usually to me with a conversation. And advocacy to me looks like this when I sit with family. What's your goal? You sit down with somebody, what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? For some of you, like, kind of want to get some type of peace of mind that if something does happen to me, I've got some of the plan started. You don't have to have a whole thing written down in a book from A to Z. You just got to start somewhere. And especially with this facility, if this one happens, which everybody's crossing their fingers, I'm telling you, the availability will be gone very quickly. The need is too high. So start with a couple of simple things. Today, respond with an email. How do I get as a first right of refusal to get on these lists? Okay, there's going to be a couple of opportunities to be on the list. And I know it sounds simple, but I'm telling you that's just where it starts. You don't have to be ready, hey, I'm moving somebody in today. Let's know who the husband in, you know. Well, they were going to miss the room to us, their husbands in. But they're all different ways to start. Just getting your Debbie and starting some of the application process, getting on the wait list to read. Starting with something, my favorite way to start people with an action plan is my favorite word is fit. Right, what that is? The break. Who needs a break? Raise your hand. All right. All of the people that you said I need a break, your loved one needs a break from you. They need a break from you. You're not as good a caregiver as you think you are. You're doing it 24/7. You know, those days that you went to bed and felt bad because you wanted the patient to be, well, be signed to be. So I was in this community. I actually worked in one of the buildings. I've opened most of the buildings here. And if you can believe it, wherever the need, it gets filled with it. This is not something that's going to happen with what the senior did. 18 years ago, redeployed the Springs. Those two buildings were right around that time. Lexington Park and Mission Oaks, 18 years ago. Anybody know how many buildings there are now? Take a guess. 38.
Wow.
If you build, they will come. And you guys are in a different predicament because once this opportunity opens, people are going to come from all over. Orlando, Tampa. You know how many people are probably going to come to the villages and didn't move here because they're not getting the solution? So you have to start somewhere. And I find that people can start these conversations if they can sit down where somebody can feel like they can have a safe conversation. Nobody's going to pressure them. Nobody's going to try to start selling to them. Nobody's going to tell them all the things they're doing wrong. But just let you start making some goals. First thing to avoid is trying to figure out, where you want to start. The second thing to avoid is figuring out what obstacles are going to keep you from accomplishing that goal. And that's what we'll do. I feel so strongly about this. I've helped many families through the years, and I know so many doctors. I know so many doctors right now that these people aren't even in these clubs. These doctors that have seniors with adults with disabilities, and these doctors call me, they're like, this 80-something-year-old walked in, they're trying to take care of their son. Things that are amazing, So my encouragement of you is you can't do the head of the sand plan. You have to kind of dig deep and say to yourself, I have a responsibility to get some of this going. Anybody here an expert in care planning beside you? Anybody here an expert in care planning? Was anybody here an expert in what they did for their career? Consider themselves an expert in their career. What did you do? Back people up? Talk to people around?
Computer security.
And you didn't want me to get there in the computer. An expert.
I am an expert telling what they don't want to do.
Okay. Everybody needs one of those in their life. So an expert is something in their career, yes, sir?
Veteran service officer.
I need to get with you, they really want to hear them, yes. And you want to know a lot about how to educate people on how to get approved for certain things, correct? I'm an expert in something. I'm trying to recruit for a right now for you. Go ahead. It's easier. Come on, who's an expert in something? I'll guarantee you're an expert at what you do.
It doesn't sound bad, but I was a hospital administrator for a state-operated forensic psychiatric facility in the state of Illinois.
I knew,
Can you repeat it, Amy?
I'm a hospital administrator for a psychiatric hospital in Illinois. You're on board. Anybody else an expert in their career? So I'm sounding braggadocious. I'm divine intervention somehow put me on a path in life, and I'm an expert at this. It's not even what I chose. I mean, I was supposed to be a veterinarian. And this is what I'm doing, and it's, so if you're afraid, and you kind of don't know where to start, I'm telling you, the first thing is just an email. Kristy, I want to start somewhere, I don't know where to start, you know? Second thing is to kind of start to, in your head, start to put together a plan, but give yourself a timeline. The reason why we need buildings, I mean, there's lots of other, probably 45 miles around this area, there are other group homes. But can you imagine the largest real estate engine in the world? That this availability is not, and this is going to be the creme de la creme. Everything you could possibly want for your loved one. And here's what I like to say. I've been helping seniors with senior housing for 20 years. I have never once had a senior that I couldn't find housing for or financial, advising them how to do this financially. And there is a little thing, there is a way. And you just have to, I think what makes me a good advocate, you probably really that don't, I don't hear from no. Like the word no, people say, no, we can't do that. Oh, that's just one way. We're gonna do it. So you have to, you know, I want you to know that, and I'm not really on this board, Kristy Campbell, she's done so much, but I know there's gonna come times that just some people need help getting started. And it just, reach out to Kristy, say, that lady, Amy, I feel like maybe she could help us get started with something. And what I learned about advocacy through my own journey, what I don't do, because people did this to me while I was taking care of my brother and my parents. I lost my mom and my dad from COVID 2 weeks apart during my mother and I had just started building our private agency, my brother's keeper. And my dad had Parkinson's, my stepdad had Parkinson's, my father-in-law had Parkinson's, my brother had Garrett's disease. I've been living caregiver life for a long time. But what I learned the most, what I try to give to people, is to let them do their journey their way. No pushing, no judging, even if they're doing it the wrong way. Because I really resented as a caregiver, people that weren't living my 24-hour caregiver day, telling me what I should be doing, what they would be doing, what maybe I was doing wrong. And so this is personal. When you're taking care of people you love, they're protective. It's hard to overcome that. People have to get to a place on their own time. And I think my reputation as community, you know, is that people call our office. This is to me the best thank you we can get. People call our office pretty much once or twice a day and they say, I need to speak to Amy. I met with her 5 years ago. Where are we now? I met with Amy 10 years ago. Where are we now? That was the longest that I heard somebody that came to an educational seminar that I did. And they're like, okay, this is stuff we need to listen to and think about. But you're ready when you're ready. But for those of you that have had some days, you had help with it and kind of scared you, and a really rough day when you weren't a nice caregiver, or you're going to bed often thinking, what's going to happen when something happens to me? Let's just get a plan in place. It's easy. We're working with somebody that does it as an expert, you know. It's not telling you what to do, it's helping you figure that out on your own. So, meet with Amy. If you need to get my contact information, she's got it. And I'm offering anybody here, you can sit down with me. I usually charge, I'm not going to charge any of you guys. You know, I want to just encourage you so you don't feel like the burdens of, I know aside from people who are worried about not surviving and being able to care for the loved one, second biggest worry I have is I'm going to be able to go forward the cost of care for my loved one. Well, you know, if you find to be true, only people that land in the situation who can't afford it are the people that have no land. And 20 years of me being an advocate for people, I have never one time, ever once, had a client of mine in a nursing home. Ever once. You know, that's because people are looking at that person, we're not thinking for life to hit us, we're going at it with a plan. So thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. And again, I can't say enough about this lady. Isn't it weird? We met each other 8 years ago, 7 years ago. And I just ran into her again like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And here we are. That's a God thing. That's a God thing. You're supposed to be here, I'm supposed to be here. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you so much, Amy. We appreciate you sharing your experience as well. Well, I'm going to open it up for questions in just a minute. I did remember I didn't talk about details for the assisted living, but let me just explain. I think you all know how an assisted living works. It's full care. So that's what would be provided in that small building with the 13 units, would be assisted living type functions. It would have, of course, the meal preparations, medication, preparation and administration and full care for the individuals. So anyway, before I open it up for questions, I have one more thing here. We are on Facebook. It's called The Villages MSP. MSP is my special place. And then we also, if someone wants to contact us, we have the email address, thevillagesmsp@gmail.com. And actually, I should have added one more I just thought of. Debbie recommended that we add My Special Place to the events website. And if you go on events.group, and she's got cards at the table, there is a drop-down menu that you can choose My Special Place. On that right now, we had the announcement of this meeting tonight. We also have the electronic survey. As I said, please do complete that survey if you haven't already, but please don't duplicate it because that just makes a lot of work for us to eliminate the duplicates. And then I also wanted to say, if any of you believe in prayer, would you please pray for this initiative? We do believe in prayer, and believe me, we've seen it happen throughout this process, day in and day out. We've seen doors opening, God giving us favor, and we truly are committed to this. As I said, we are all working very hard on this, and we're very optimistic that something could happen. So where do we go from here? As I mentioned, we're working with the service providers. We're hoping to get some proposals. We're meeting with one next Friday. We're hoping to get this process of selection within maybe 4 weeks if possible. There's a lot of hoops that we got to jump through and a lot of evaluation to still continue to do. That's one step. I will tell you another step that we have coming up besides the 501c3 applying for that. Debbie has suggested, and so is one of our service providers, encouraged us to meet with our local legislators. And so Debbie has reached out to our state representatives here to see if we can sit down and meet with them to tell them what we're doing and present to them the challenges that we may have when this comes to licensing, especially for having a day program provided by the same service provider in the same building. That might not be possible, but we're questioning why. And this is my biggest statement I say to people. I don't understand why the state, APD and ACA, restrict the licensing to have a day program in the same building as residential care provided by the same service provider. And they do not encourage that type of living, residential housing, because they look at it as institutionalization. And I say to that, why is it okay to place seniors or offer them independent care living, assisted living, and memory care? Why is it okay to put them in, like Amy said, we have 38 here in the villages alone. Why is that okay? We don't say that that's institutionalizing that demographic of individuals, but yet for the IDD community, they're restricting that. That doesn't make sense to me. It does not make sense to me. Go to any assisted living facility and you will see vibrant communities with like people living together, with like people having daily programs of activities and outings and events and transportation. Why do they have these restrictions on our community of the IT? And that's what we're battling, and we're going to bring that up to the legislators when we have that opportunity to talk to them and see if they can open some of these doors and see what we can get accomplished. So, at this time, bless you, I am going to open it up to any questions. Yes, do you want to give the microphone? We'd like you to do it on the microphone so the people on Zoom can hear, and also so our recording will have it as well.
Mic's off.
My mic's off?
Yeah.
And that's because.
There must be a problem.
Okay.
Always prepare kindergarten children, I can talk pretty loud.
Okay.
That's what they're working, none of them are working. I have felt from the beginning of all of this, when I started hearing about it, that it was almost a legal issue. It was almost a legal issue. I'm following up on your final point. To me, this is a legal issue that we can have all of these, that we are providing for seniors in so many ways, and every single thing they need and require to stay healthy and strong. And then all of a sudden it comes to this community. I have a grandson that lives in this community, he lives in Maryland. So it just amazes me that we do not, how can you say we can't do that? That seems like the disabilities that would be screaming all over that. So that's one thing I've always thought about. The other thing is the position you're in right now, where you don't want to let out a lot of information until you get things kind of solid, because the more people you have involved, the more cumbersome it becomes getting to solutions. But there's so much energy and so much optimism here. It just seems like once you get started and you get this baseline, the way you're planning, we live in the villages, there's 160,000 people. I cannot believe, look at the paper, the amount of volunteerism and energy that goes into every single need. I don't care how big, how small, 4-legged, 2-legged, old, young, whatever. Everyone's jumping all over looking like we do. What can my group do for these individuals to make it better? You've got the researchers, the very intelligent people, you've got lawyers, you've got special ed teachers and nurses and all those people who think, I would love to get involved in that. My group wants to be involved. Everybody wants to, at this point in their life, feel like they are giving back. In some kind of a way, they're giving back. Now, a lot of folks said, I wasn't like to say, well, I should with my children, my grandson. You're giving back every single day. When she's talked about, what do you do well? I got married at 24, I had 3 littles, and we bought my husband's home, and I had 3 babies over here. So when I bought the house, it was 80, 82, and 84, with his side of the family living there, and my little ones, 4, 2, and baby. And that's what I did. That was just the way it worked. And then I got into education where it was home, going to the homes for identified individuals. It would be like the city of Syracuse, where I came from, saying, okay, we're going to take care of all of these people, we're going to build apartments, this is what it's going to be like, but we're not going to build them for you. Yeah. Because of your color, because of your abilities, because of the physical needs that you might have. That's not right under any roof. I don't care. So I really think once you get it rolling, once you folks that are on the board get it rolling, I think you'll have more people calling and saying, what can my group do? And that's what I did. The minute it goes in the paper, you better hire a PR person or whatever. That could be me. Saying, right, everyone wants to help. What can we do? Everybody wins by feeling good. Groups are gonna feel good. Your people are gonna feel good. Your people are gonna feel good. Everybody's gonna feel good. So I feel good. Just to be so here's some life for somebody else.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you. Yeah.
I want you to know there should be an article in the paper about Kristy. She'll never say it herself. I had to push her into this. But she was interviewed for that section that says, you may know Kristy Sullivan for, but did you know? And so expect that in the paper. But part of that was get the publicity out so that the My Special Place would get out to people who aren't getting their kids to Special Olympics and all those things.
Okay.
Everything is kind there.
Just
People are looking for fun, I mean, people are looking for something good to be happening.
Just to reiterate an idea that other people are having, but when we started My Special Place in 2018, we sat down with the village's developer, his representative. One of the things we said was, there are some of us who like to work with wood, and you built us a wood shop. You built us another wood. There are some of us who have kids. You built us a playground for our animals. You built us a hotel. You've done everything we've asked you to do. And all we're asking is, we need a house, a place for our special place. That was the premise.
And I also want to add, I write this to every letter I do to legislators. This is a senior problem because we're aging out. We won't be there for the last 20, 25 years for our kids. So it's a worry for seniors. So if this is a state dedicating so much to seniors, they've got to add that component. Any more questions?
Is the service provider secret or can you tell us about?
At this time, we're not disclosing because we're still vetting and we're waiting for information. We would like to just wait until we make that selection.
Service provider will own or lease the units, then release them to the residents.
So good question. This is still a work in progress. And so initially, our intention was to bring in a service provider who would acquire the facility. They would determine what the programs are, manage it, and provide the services. However, we have some opportunities that have arisen. There's a possibility that we've got some large contributions that have been offered. We don't have them in hand yet because we're not a 501c3, number one. And number two, we didn't plan to be a building host. However, through discussions here recently, we may need to rethink that. And so that's a work in progress. You know, there's a possibility if we could get these donations and bring down that cost of the building and have the building almost paid for, that would make a significant difference in the cost for those that have to pay private pay. We would love to see that. We would absolutely love to see that. If any of you have an extra $1 million or two sitting out and you'd like to share it, we're here with open arms and we'll be willing to accept it as soon as we get that 501c3. By the way, as soon as we get that application submitted, which we're working with the company to do that, we can start receiving donations, even though the IRS may take 6 months to approve us. But there are permits that we can get that allow us to receive those funds immediately. So we're serious though. There are people that have a legacy in their estate, and they might want to leave their home to a church, or they might want to leave a home for any other purpose. Amy was talking to us, we met last night. She had all kinds of ideas. She's full of ideas. But she said, I've got parents that are ready to donate their home to someone that it would benefit. And that could be an organization. It could be a nonprofit agency like ours. You know, there are those people that don't that they'd like to share that wealth. She actually said she had one for us last night. We're like, yay, maybe we need to rethink this. Maybe we need to consider owning this building. So like I said, this is still a work in progress, but if we're able to come up with enough money to buy that building, that would be very advantageous to those that want to live there because it wouldn't be as high of rent, obviously.
It's about 150,000 per unit.
Individual, yeah. But, you know, we decided not to structure it that way. There were discussions early on with the board. Do we want to make it like a condo? You know, you pay so much for a unit, like Freedom Point is. You know, you pay like $350,000, $400,000 to move in Freedom Point. And then on top of it, you pay a monthly, you know, rental and service for everything you get there. We decided not to go that route because we still do want to have the opportunity to accept government benefits for those that are fortunate enough to have APD as well as Social Security. I will tell you that on the surveys that we've received so far, there's only a quarter of the people that are receiving it. A quarter. So that means for those individuals that are interested in this opportunity, you're looking at private pay as well as your SSI or SSDI. What other questions do you have? She's going to go first and then you can go next. Thank you.
On the two-story building, you see like when you want to.
Can you talk a little louder?
On the two-story building, it's like from what you said, I'm understanding that they're gonna be more independent.
Correct.
Okay, but are they gonna be, they're gonna be a dining room?
Yes. It's got a community dining room. There will be an option of 3 meals served for those that need that service. And there will be 24/7 care there. Now, if your individual is receiving APD benefits, they would get so many hours a week for a companion, or like I said, the supportive living coach. But if they don't have that, there's the option that would be private pay to give those services to your loved one.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, yeah, there was a lady in the back.
Yes, we have a daughter that is, let's see, she's 38 now. And when we first came to the villages, we just came to the meeting here because we were looking for some way to have her be with us. Well, it all worked out. The caregiver in Atlanta moved and they were with us and we were okay until COVID. But now she's living in Ocala, going to the Marion Armory. And
Okay.
she lives with the caregiver. But, you know, as you say, 24/7 caregiving for that person is very hard. She needs assistance with, you know, bathing, a lot of things. She's low, achievement. She can walk and everything, but how will she be taken care of? Can there be someone assigned personally to her like she has now, or can we pay for that person? We are private pay, by the way, also.
That's what I was just gonna ask you.
Yeah, we know.
Okay. I will tell you that Tammy on our board, she has a daughter that, she receives APD services and, she is in a wheelchair primarily, but she receives full care, correct?
Full care.
She receives full care. She's in a group home, not in this area. But, she gets some substantial funding from APD for her care, substantial.
So Kim would not even. Her circumstances are that she can't even apply for SSI or Medicaid or anything. She already has her funding in place.
Okay, okay. So if she has her funding in place, it would be private pay and there would be services based on that level. You know, there's going to be a range. There's going to be a very basic care level, a moderate care level, and probably an extensive care level. And that would be the extensive care level. What we would like, and we don't know if this is totally feasible yet, this was in our desired list. We would love to see the facility, that's the 13 unit, be to end of life care. Meaning that if your loved one does develop a serious medical condition, that they can stay there until the end of life. I will tell you that several of the service providers that we visited, they were able to offer that. Now, some are intermediate care facilities and they're able to do that. Some are, you know, assisted living type. They can do that, or group homes. But there's also been some creative discussions with the service providers and Amy. Amy even said, you can have palliative care come in and take care of them until end of life. So we would love to see that in that facility. But if you have the private pay and can, you know, you can get the service, you know, it's just a matter of the cost, obviously. Mhm. What other questions?
You talked, ask about the efficiency, you had 9 kitchen efficiencies.
Yes.
The other apartments have.
Just a bedroom? Just a bedroom and a bathroom. So the-
Refrigerators.
No,
Microwave.
no. And whether or not a small refrigerator can be added, Those are things we haven't gotten down to the details. They probably could, like a hotel room, like a hotel room, that kind of refrigerator.
These renovations are needed to put in things like refrigerators for and microwaving food, things like that.
What was the first part?
What kind of renovation?
Oh, the renovations. Okay.
Possibly adding something, so.
Some
Yeah.
people may need
a
meals
base
like lunch, dinner, but they may not need the breakfast, or they want the microwavable food, something like that.
So his question was, could the other rooms have microwaves? That was a suggestion by one of the service providers, that's a possibility. The rooms, like I said, there's different sizes of rooms, but pretty much all of them that are not the efficiencies are one large room and one private bathroom is primarily what they are. But if you think of this as like a hotel room, I will tell you that these are bigger than most hotel rooms that you've seen. But, you can have those small hotel type refrigerators in a room. As far as the renovations, I will tell you what we're looking at is all new flooring, all new painting. It needs new furniture, obviously, new lighting, more efficient lighting. It needs all new kitchen and commercial equipment, which was not part of that the renovations that I talked about. It was going to be $1 million plus those things. So in the long run, it will probably be almost $1 million once all the furniture, the decorating, the commercial equipment is in. However, getting that second estimate was sure great because it was much less than what the owner had originally told us he got an estimate on.
You're planning, I'm sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
You said furniture, are you planning on providing furniture?
No, I'm sorry, common area furniture, dining room, living room, any other multi-use rooms. They have offices there. There's a conference room and things like that. Jeannie?
That was my question.
Oh, was it? Okay, good. Okay. No, everyone would provide their own furniture for the bedrooms. Any other questions? Yes.
Not a question so much as just a thank you for your effort in pulling this together. We've been following this since 2018, and I know John and the previous board did a great job of setting the direction and pulling this all together. The restart is really impressive and exciting, so nice job. Thank you.
I couldn't do it alone, obviously, but I will tell you the foundation was laid by John and the previous board members on that board. Definitely the foundation was laid. But we have got our sights on those buildings. They've been on those buildings since day one. That's why we're going full force, straight ahead. We're taking this train all the way, we hope, and that's our plan. And as far as myself being in the newspaper, I don't like to self-promote myself, but I will tell you, I agreed to do it only because it's going to promote my special place. It's going to give us recognition. It's hopefully going to identify additional families that we haven't locked into or identified and get them aware of this and also get some surveys from them. Cindy?
Will you be allowing people who aren't from the villages?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Will you be allowing special needs people who aren't from the villages?
Yes. So we are targeting this initially for the villages. We cannot restrict it to villagers, obviously. But we are targeting it to you because we know the need. But if it becomes a matter of fulfilling that, it will be opened up to individuals outside the villages. We can't restrict that. Yes.
So you may see that there's people that's outside the villages and they got a kid, they want to put in some sort of facility like that. And they may buy a house in the villages just to be close to their kid that they put in that facility. I think they will come to the villages for that purpose. So get in as soon as you can because it'll probably fill up.
My husband's a salesman.
Okay, what do you do when you fill up those buildings and you have any plans or vision to look for other buildings or what?
Well, that will be up to the service providers. Is it working? No, okay, I'll just talk. That will be up to the service providers. That's why we've spoke to them and said, this is just our first foot into this housing availability. We know that as soon as the first one is up and operating and people can see the benefits of it all, and then we feel that they will look at expansion. They want that opportunity to expand more. And who knows? It's not exclusive to one service provider, but obviously if one gets in here, it's advantageous for them to expand once they see that need and that demand. That's what businesses do. But there's nothing restricting more than one coming in here even. We're just trying to select one to get this started. That's our objective.
Will the developer look upon this footprint as an opportunity to sell more homes? That's key. Once we get this facility built and the developer sees what an important part of this community, our community will be, I think it'll encourage them to look at other places and other placements for it.
Yes. And as we know, there's not a lot of opportunities in the villages proper as far as facilities. Now, I don't know, Amy had suggested we look at these assisted living facilities that were either the owners are interested in selling or that they might be going bankrupt here soon. I think you read some of the information in the newspaper about one recently. And I'll be honest with you, I did check out a couple of them that she had recommended. They're outside the villages, and believe me, I don't think you would have wanted your child to live there. One that I looked at, there is absolutely no way. The other one I looked at, it was okay. The location, terrible. Not in the villages, outside the villages, not even in a good location outside the villages. So I'm just telling you, there's not a lot of opportunities. This just happens to be one that's available. And that's why we're so urgently working on this with these service providers to see if we can make something happen before they go away.
The supported living buildings were requirements and do you know feel from the agencies whether or not people that may be a little higher functioning may not be able to get funding to live in something that may have more services than is already required? Like the 24/7, that type of thing, that the transportation or what have you. Have you got any?
So I'm not sure I quite followed that.
She's wondering if service providers will still provide the services for transportation 24/7.
Because it was part of the package would be, to have 24/7 meal services, transportation. But
Not necessarily. So in the independent living, you would choose what services you need. If you need to private pay them, if you have APD services,
Okay.
it would all be based on how much funding you're getting and what needs you are.
So they think of that.
Oh, yeah, if the individual drives a car, no, they're not gonna need transportation. That's a separate expense. It's not gonna be a package deal for the independent living because we have varying needs. Now, the assisted living side will have levels of care, but there'll be 24/7 care because that's a different model, a different housing model.
I was just wondering if the
But
service.
it'll be like a menu of
Right.
services that you can choose from that they would pay for.
Well, my concern was just if the service provider makes X amount of money from having the meals, from having this, from having that, they may not want to not have to go partake in everything. But if it's gonna happen without it. then-
Yeah, actually, I will say both of the service providers that we're working with, they're both interested. We wouldn't have been to this point if they weren't interested. I will say one's already determined it can be feasible, to do this. Yeah, but, can we say how that's gonna work exactly yet? Not yet. But they've determined enough that it can be feasible, that they're still moving forward to work this out. Yes. Kevin?
Yes, I was gonna say, please watch what you say, they will not let you talk. To the village's newspaper. They denied everything that I had said. They wouldn't even talk to me.
Okay. Kevin just said something about talking to the newspaper.
Kevin's been an advocate that's really brought a lot of those push button door openers to our community.
Right.
And it's really from his work, a lot of the, like restrooms up in the squares and things like that, and the rec centers. He's saying he's trying to, solicit the help of the newspapers to, get out his message. He's had difficulty, but I will tell you, Kevin, that's partly why Kristy met with people and trying to build up the relationship and have it go smooth for when this happens. So we're hoping taking it slow will, help there. Okay?
Okay, well.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin, for what you've done.
Any other questions? Any other questions? We thank you so much for coming. There's still some cookies in the bag. We'll keep you up to date and please check on the fins, for additional updates. Thank you so much for your time.